Phil, you were singing the theme tune to Wonder Woman. Would you like to give us another burst?
Oh, I'm going to get it wrong. Can you actually play the real clip? Clip?
I'm not sure I can actually remember what the theme is.
It's like guitar-y.
Isn't that the X-Men theme from the cartoon show?
It does sound like the X-Men theme. I remember as I was singing it to you, I was thinking, that sounds like a TV show. And that's what it is, the X-Men theme. Wow. But maybe you could actually play the one, because I think that's the only theme from Batman vs Superman which is actually quite strong and memorable. Okay. So when I've heard that, I know, that's the Wonder Woman theme.
Let me see if I can find a little clip. If I do, it will go here and we'll all see how great Phil was. If not, then you'll just sound and look like a fool, Phil.
As usual.
Yes. Listeners, I went to see Wonder Woman this week, starring Gal Gadot or Gal Gadot or Gal Gadot. How do you pronounce it, Phil?
Gal Gadot.
Gal Gadot, that's what we're going with. Sorry, Gal, if you're out there. Just realised how that sounds to say.
Gals.
Gal. Sorry, you shouldn't laugh. It's a name. Yes. A lot of criticism came her way for some reason. This is something I've heard anyway, for taking on the role of Wonder Woman. I think she's terrific in it, personally. Do you remember her in Batman vs Superman?
Yeah, she was one of my favourite parts in that movie, of a not very good movie. I think she has a lot of charisma and strength to her character, I think. Yeah,
she portrays it really well, doesn't she? And interesting you said that there, because I think after Batman vs Superman and Suicide Squad, it's that miniature performance that everyone saw towards the end of Batman vs Superman that essentially is the last remaining hope for the DC expanded universe.
I think you might be right there, yeah.
Exactly. Marvel appear to survive even when they pump out average films. They've landed on a formula that just works, whereas DC have just never seemed to be able to court the critical acclaim that they need, and even their box office, which is impressive, is still considered a relative failure given how heavily invested they are in those films. And what would you say the general criticisms are, Phil?
Criticisms are that it's too dark, too serious, and a bit too concerned with looking cool, and they kind of miss the point that these people need to be relatable, I think. I have a theory, actually, why the DC films aren't doing very well.
Do it fast.
It's because the Marvel films, you know every single alter ego that they have. You understand Peter Parker, you understand Tony Stark, whatever. In these films, DC Universe films, you have no investment in Bruce Wayne or Clark Kent or Diana, what's her name? Diana Prince. You don't really know them as characters. They have to be Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman. That's all they exist in this movie. They're not real people behind the costumes. They are the costumes.
And they do try to do that, but that's an interesting point of view. Listeners, let us know if you agree with Phil's insight there. Now, I tentatively will suggest right at the top here that if you're feeling tense right now, you've got a lot of tension in your chest and you're just hoping, then you can let the tension subside, because this film was pretty good. Okay?
Is it?
Yeah, I'll say that right at the top, because I think there will be people who are genuinely a bit nervous about it. But yeah, I'll get into it in more detail. So we've got a clip for you, listeners. This is Gal Gadot and the rest of the Amazonian women who live on a hidden island, secluded, separate from the rest of the world. You've got Connie Nielsen from Gladiator, who is Hippolyta, the queen. You've got Robin Wright playing, I can't remember the name, but she's the sort of the warrior chief of the Amazon. Gal Gadot, who is the young one who's growing up and all that sort of thing. Just picture the scene. They're all stood there arrayed in all their finery. They look very intimidating. They're an incredibly magical place, and you're seeing it all through the eyes of a completely bewildered and lost World War I pilot, Chris Pine, who has come in, and he's Stephen Trevor. He has crash landed around this magical island and has been saved by these people, and now is being questioned by them. They want to know how he discovered them, what he's doing there, and they've got a specific method to ensure that he speaks the truth.
A whip of truth, isn't it, or something?
Well, let's see.
My name is Captain Steve Trevor, pilot, American Expeditionary Forces, serial number 8141921. That's all I'm at liberty to... Assigned to British intelligence. What the hell is this thing?
The lasso of Hestia compels you to reveal the truth.
But it's really hot.
What is your mission?
Whoever you are in more danger than you think.
What is your mission?
I am a spy! I'm a spy.
Is this the first man that Wonder Woman's ever met?
Yeah, that's right. And there's a few jokes at both their expense along those lines as well. Very enjoyable jokes. I should give you a little bit more context, but I'm slightly nervous too, because as I was writing a review for this one, the setup for this film is quite baggy, but it isn't representative of the whole film. So if you find what I'm about to say confusing, I apologise, but just know that the film does it better than I do.
Just shrug it off.
Yeah, exactly. That's right. So we start right back in ancient Greece. Like, basically, the origin of these Amazonian women in this version of history is that they were created by Zeus, the god, and they were supposed to bridge the differences between the races of men and try and bring peace to the world. Because although Zeus created mankind and he was loving it, very happy with it, Ares, the god of war, was not impressed by mankind and thought they were evil and wicked and deserved to be destroyed. So he fostered lots of war and conflict and, you know, all that kind of stuff. So Phil's making a face. I understand, Phil, trust me. And this is all told, incidentally, like the beginning of Lord of the Rings, basically.
Right, okay.
Like with the voiceover, except rather than clips from the film, they animate sort of Greek-style Baroque paintings. Don't worry, Phil. It's better. This is like, trust me, it's better than it sounds. But yeah, so the Amazons came in and tried to solve that problem. They fought against Ares, but Ares succeeded in destroying loads and loads of gods. He remains a threat out in the world, and the Amazons have retreated to this hidden island to bide their time, ready to defeat Ares when the moment arises. Is that making sense?
Yes.
So in other words, time has stood still for them, which is why they're still in armour and still carrying swords and shields and all that sort of stuff. And so when a World War I pilot arrives in his plane, they're completely bemused. And when he's immediately followed by the German Navy that's pursuing him, they're even more confused and confronted by violence. And that is the method by which Wonder Woman leaves the island, because when she sees the war that follows this man, Chris Pine, she realises it must be Ares. Ares is there. He's the one causing the world war. I must go and defeat him and save the world. Clear?
Yes, actually, surprisingly.
Is it really?
Yeah.
I'm glad to hear that. Listeners, I really enjoyed this film. I was really relieved to enjoy this film. Top of the list for me is the fact that Patty Jenkins, who's the director here, she also directed Monster, and Phil, you said she was slated to direct Thor 2?
I think there's something like that. Natalie Portman, I think, was a fan of hers and wanted her to do Thor 2, and then eventually it didn't happen, much to Natalie Portman's disappointment.
Well, she was quite right to be disappointed, because Patty Jenkins seems to have learned from all the mistakes from those DC EU films that we were just discussing, Phil, because this film knows how to balance light-hearted, real characters who live and breathe like actual people with sort of massive epic events to do with the world ending and all that kind of stuff. There's a degree of campy cheesiness and fun in here, the like of which, you know, you'd be tempted to say is more seen in a Marvel film, although actually I think it's different. What's really nice about this is it's the jokiness that has its own tone. Marvel, I think you can tell the sort of jokes that are likely to be made. Think about Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2.
Yeah, there's a certain style of joke, isn't it?
That's right. Often it's an eye raised, it's ironic, it's referential.
Slightly sarcastic.
Yeah, this is not that. This is genuinely just a bit witty. I laughed a lot. And it's great that the writers and director spotted the potential for humour in this film naturally in the story, so it didn't feel like an injection. Like, for example, Suicide Squad, you could tell stuff had been injected into that film.
Is it more to do with fish out of water stuff? Because I know Dawn from The Office is in it.
Yeah, that's right. I was going to come on to that. The best bits in the film, for my money, are the fact that here's Wonder Woman, who's been an incredibly strong, tough woman wandering around in pants and a breastplate all her life.
With a sword.
And suddenly she's in like the prudish wartime London, walking around. And Chris Pine is playing the sort of hesitant sort of fuddy-duddy. He's like, no, you keep your cloak on, please. No, you can't do that. No, we've got to get you some clothes to stop you being so distracting and all that sort of stuff. And it is funny seeing Britain through the eyes of this like superwoman, basically. And that's where Dawn from The Office turns up. Lucy Davis, I think is her name. She plays Etta, who is Chris Pine's nominal secretary. And she helps Gal Gadot get an outfit and become a bit more acclimatized. Yeah.
And is she the counterpoint to Wonder Woman's sort of supreme independent woman to this kind of slightly dotty?
Yeah. She makes it, right, okay. Yeah, exactly. Well, kind of in the background. Yeah, and that's really nice. There's a nice little bit of counterpoint there about here's one kind of strong woman, and perhaps here's another one. You might not see it in the same way, but here is another one too.
I see what they did.
Exactly. I thought it was really great, and I loved all the chemistry. Inevitably, there's a point at which they need to go off on a quest, and for the purposes of that, they assemble a small team filled with some mates that Chris Pine knows who are a bit disreputable, but, you know, the kind of guys he trusts with his life. The sharpshooter, played by the guy who plays Spud in Train Spotting, and a couple of other guys that I didn't recognise so well, I have to admit. Very, very charming. Someone said to me after I came out the screening, it's almost like Suicide Squad done right.
Well, I was just wondering, it sounds like what they kind of wanted to do.
Yeah, well, exactly, and it's a bit of a shame in a way that this is so much better than Suicide Squad was, because, well, anyway, you can make that observation for yourselves there, listeners. And I think there's great camaraderie and great soul-searching as well. So not content to just let the epicness of the story speak for itself, the characters do, wonder out loud about the nature of war and about the nature of man. And there's a very basic plot device that enables them to do that, because Wonder Woman sees the world very plainly. Ares is causing war. If I kill Ares, the war will stop. That's what she thinks. Whereas Chris Pine is here as a spy for World War I, saying, yeah, but then maybe it's a bit more complicated than that.
Maybe sometimes you have to do bad things to do good.
Yeah, and maybe people aren't all completely good in the way that you hoped. And it's a classic age-old sort of paradox, and I think really surprisingly deftly handled in the script. Fantastic performances as well.
Does that not make Wonder Woman Diana Prince, is it? Does that not make her a very flat character and a bit of a dud in terms of female led films, if she's so blank and so...
Well, no, she's not blank. She's new. So she is discovering all this stuff herself. But, life wasn't straightforward for her on the island as well, because she's unique amongst the Amazons, and you can learn more about that when you see the film yourself. And she grew up there, surrounded by women who didn't want her to become a warrior. They wanted her to maintain a sort of innocence and stuff. So she's already had a sort of troubled or slightly unusual upbringing. And then when she comes into wartime London, she just learns all the time. She's not flat. She's learning a lot.
Is it a bit like Lulu?
George the Jungle?
No, not George the Jungle. I was going to go with Fifth Element and what's her name?
Lily. What's her name? Lilu. Lilu Dallas Multipass.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a bit... I think Wonder Woman is a stronger character than...
but that sort of dynamic, she's discovering the world and what it's like, and that's informing her character. So she progresses naturally in the film.
That kind of thing, yeah. I should probably mention something about the threat, which is they've kind of concocted these two German scientists who are developing a big chemical bomb. I think the main woman is called Dr. Poison, and she's some kind of amazing... Don't roll your eyes like that, but it's a comic book movie.
It's a silly comic book name, isn't it?
That's great. That's what I always want comic book films to do. And they're concocting something, and that's the major threat that they have to go and solve. You've also got David Thewlis turning up, also known as Ridiculous.
Professor Lupin.
Thank you, Professor Lupin, Mr. Werewolf. Who's
spoilers? Sorry.
He is an English minister who knows Chris Pine and is sympathetic to their plight and stuff, and he gets slightly more to do later on as well. Really liked him in the film. He lended some gravitas that the more jokey stuff needed for balance. So I hope you're getting a picture. I really liked it. My criticisms, sadly, are to do with Zack Snyder's imprint on the film, I have to admit. And
the slow-mo fighting, epic, cool.
Yeah, I really never got the fight sequences in Man of Steel or Batman vs Superman, really. The Batman fights were good because they were small scale, whereas when the superheroes start fighting, they just zoom miles away. It's really hard to follow it. There's an overuse of CGI.
It's a bit like Dragon Ball Z anime style.
Yeah, mixed with 300, right? Which is what made his name in the first place.
Yeah.
It's got a sort of hyper-stylized nature to it that occasionally I just wanted it to stop doing slow-mo. Occasionally I just wanted it to stop panning right the way around. Occasionally I just wanted it to let me see Gal Gadot do some cool moves. It's a weird sort of counterintuitive thing. The more you sort of swirl around and do clever things with the camera and the effects and the pace and the motion, the less realistic the fighting looks. And one of this film's massive selling points, as well as one of its big achievements, is that you've got a really strong leading woman doing all this stuff. So it would have been a much stronger statement, in my opinion.
She just did it.
Yeah, to allow you to see her doing it rather than relying on camera tricks to sort of emphasise her strength. Which is not to say it's always bad. I just thought it was a bit of a disappointment.
Are you sort of looking for a Black Widow-esque jump on the shoulders, spin round, do the twisty judo
even
stuff?
better, because like Wonder Woman is power. Like Black Widow is sort of gymnastics, right, and skill. Wonder Woman has that, sure, but she's powerful, she's strong, and that's just imbued into her character, and I wanted to see more of that.
So you want to see her punch a guy and fly off in the world?
Yeah, genuinely, I wouldn't have minded that. Yeah, that's right. There are moments that come close to that. The other thing I wasn't so keen on, two other things, is that the colour palette amazingly starts out as vivid as you can imagine when they're in this Paradise Island place, which was great. It was like the anti-DC. It's like this cheesy Greek paradise. Yeah, it's fantastic. But they cannot resist when the epic stuff starts happening. They cannot resist slowing it down, darkening the colour palette and infusing it with this dull darkness, which has become so routine.
Because the world's so dark.
It was so annoying. I wish they hadn't done that. It made some of the sort of really epic, serious, solemn moments a bit tedious and almost funny because they were so overplayed. They got that wrong too. Final thing, a poor script in some places, I'm sorry to say. And I noticed that Chris Pine and Gal Gadot in particular, and Dawn from the Office, Lucy Davies, are so good They're such good performers. They make you feel like this is a really well-written film. But then in weak moments where...
they can't hide it.
Yeah. So unfortunately, some of the biggest clunkers land on Wonder Woman's shoulders herself. And that's really annoying because it gives people a tool with which to attack her performance, which I don't think is justified. And I have heard some people say, oh yeah, she's, not
bit
great.
clunky.
But I disagree. I think she's great. I think none of the characters were that well served by the script. So that's kind of it, Phil, at a rate of knots.
That's great. What's the grade?
I would give it a B+. I think it's really solid and very enjoyable.
That is higher than I was expecting, because
Really?
you are not a fan of the superhero genre. You don't really like these sort of films, especially with the world building. And if you like it, I think maybe there is something there.
I mean, I really kind of dug the cheesy Xena warrior princess vibe at the beginning. Like, that really set me in a good mood, because I just thought this film knows it's a bit silly. And you have Robin Wright, who was the Princess Bride woman, right? She's there as this fierce warrior chief.
Princess Buttercup.
Yeah, exactly. And now she's so tough, but she's completely 100% bought in, and you can see it, and it just works. I think so much of it works, and I'm so relieved to be able to say it. Definitely give it a watch.
Any bonuses?
It's not a funny bonus, but what I will say is that when a baddie becomes revealed, it's one of the best sort of... when you used to play fighting games when you were teenagers, Phil, and watch things like Dragon Ball Z, you kind of wait for the climax moment where someone reveals their ultimate power.
Their true form.
Exactly. There's a moment like that actually gave me a good feeling.
Really?
Surprisingly, because I thought that moment had been done to death now in films, but it was one of the most convincing sorts of, you don't know what you're dealing with here.
Revelation.
Moments I've seen for quite some time.
Cool, there you go, Wonder Woman. Get your thoughts in. I'm sure people will go see this one. SueBaderose@gmail.com, or you can tweet us at SueBaderose. If you agree with Laurie, send him a +1. If you don't agree with him, send him a -1 and explain why.